Hey everyone, welcome to Founders 365 with me, Stephen Haggerty. Today I'm joined by the founder and president of Hodge and Associates, Mr. Hodge himself. Thank you
Wow.
very much for being. I feel like we need like a canned round of applause now,
Wow.
or something like that.
Would it be inappropriate for me to applause for myself? Because that's just not something I train people
No,
to do, and I
do
don't
it.
feel comfortable.
It's gone.
All right.
There we go.
Yeah. Okay.
Boom.
Thank you. Thank you,
Welcome,
Stephen.
welcome. Jay,
Wow.
thank you so much for coming on the show. And it's going to be a great discussion. But first and foremost, just let the listeners know, what is it Hodge and Associates does?
To put it in about a succinct statement as possible, J. Hodge and Associates works with companies to help them get out of the rut
Ooh, I like that.
of complacency, of contentment. Every organization realizes, from the CEO sitting there in the office with the board, the potential they have, from processes, quality, customer satisfaction, all of those things from a financial standpoint. But how do we get to where we know we can get? And we seem to be stalemated or stagnated. And J. Hodge and Associates helps them get past that, plain and simple.
Simple, and I loved the description as well. Let's rewind in time then. How did you get into this? How did you get into helping sort of these leaders and these companies reach their goals, streamline their process, become better people and businesses?
It's actually a pretty interesting story. I started my career in the Marine Corps, and so um, as Marines, they don't teach you to be passive. They teach you to be fairly aggressive for obvious reasons. Um, and so, I think the Marine Corps was really the catalyst from a personality standpoint and confidence standpoint. Um, but if you look at my career, it started with the Marine Corps, then Ford, then General Motors, then Toyota. I consider Toyota probably the pivotal point in my
Mm-hmm.
career. Then Caterpillar, then Tenet Healthcare. So I went from
All
manufacturing
huge
into healthcare.
companies.
Yes. And, anywhere from frontline supervisor to vice president level. And I think that um, I think God put me in different positions to prepare me for starting my own company. Um, when I look at those positions, it's easy for me because my degree is in accounting, and people go, "Well, you've not an accountant." No, I've been in operations, but you know what? One of the best things you can understand from an operations standpoint is the financial side of the business.
Of course.
Um, and so, that's where my career really took off. And then Toyota, my years at Toyota, it changed the way I thought. And then what a lot of people don't really understand about Toyota is that Toyota, their buildings are not that different than Ford's, GM's, or anybody else's. In fact, they use a lot of the same suppliers, a lot of the same equipment, the materials. What's different about Toyota is how they think about what they do. And when I go into a company, first thing I tell the leadership is, I'm not here to change what you do. I'm here to change how you think about what you do. Because if you don't change how you think about what you do, there's no reason to change what you do if you don't understand what you
Mm-hmm.
do in a different light. Um, so that's really how I got here. And 5 years ago, I decided to start my own company, doing this on my own schedule, working with who I wanted to work with, and I've it's just been crazy how busy I've
Amazing.
been, and
How's the
not
leap?
necessarily.
How's the leap from going from those big, powerful names, let's face it, where you've had that support, that sort of people around you, to making that leap of going on your own and venturing out?
I think, it's one of those things where you walk up to the edge of the cliff and you've either got the guts to jump or you don't. And I think that's where I said the Marine Corps gave me the confidence um, to just take that jump.
Mm.
And I've had leaders from different companies ask me over the years, would you ever come work for us? Would you ever, come do this with us on a full-time basis? I'm like, no. But when I started my own company, I already had three or four companies reaching out to me saying, "Hey,
Yeah.
hey, first in line, first in line," and I have to start that out with. That doesn't mean I'm that good. It just means that I have the ability to show you how good you are.
Mm-hmm.
Because a consultant can't walk in. I've had so many people say to me, "So you're here to fix us." Absolutely not.
Yeah, that's
Um,
such a common question.
it is, and absolutely not, because a consultant walks into a building for the first time and they don't even know where the bathroom is. How can I walk in and expect to understand your millions of complicated processes and fix you? My job isn't to fix you. My job is to give you the tools, give you the knowledge, give you the thought processes so that you can fix yourself and become, world class. If your goal is to
Yeah,
become world class, if you're a hospital, you want to be the number one hospital in the region. You want to be the number one manufacturing facility in your entire organization. I can show you how to do that, but I can't do it. And that's a misnomer, a fallacy that a lot of people think about consultants.
yeah.
That's not what
Often
we do.
they think that because they're hiring a consultant or someone from externally, they're gonna come in and fix everything. When actually,
Hmm.
it's you kind of got to break some stuff to fix some stuff.
You
You got
do,
to
and
break that mindset.
and if I get people to understand that if a consultant comes in and fixes your problems, when they walk away, who's there to understand and sustain those changes? Nobody.
Hmm.
The teams, the staff, the leadership, the directors, they have to be part of the solution. If they're not, when the consultant walks away, you either get two things: the consultant walks away and everything goes back to norm, or you get a consulting engagement that's 20 years long, which neither one of those are good.
Yeah, exactly. The latter you may think is good, but nah, it's just never gonna work out.
It's good
Um,
for the consultant, hey.
it's good for it's. I mean, but then that consultant may as well just become an employee. 20 years
There you go.
stability, that sort of thing.
That's
For you,
exactly right.
Jet, five. You said 5 years since you
Hmm.
went solo, right? So in the last 5 years, what's been a moment that you look back on now and you just think that was a damn good project and you're super proud of?
I'd have to say it was probably in a hospital system that I worked at. They had 8 different ORs,
Wow.
and it was chaos. They had eight OR rooms. Um, 6 of them were basically identical. They had an ortho room. They had a take back room, a trauma, um, and it was chaos. You walk into the 6 that were supposed to be identical. You'd walk in and the cabinets and everything, they were stocked differently. They didn't have the same inventory. The rooms didn't have the same equipment. So it took about 6 months, but we did what's called a 5S project. 5S stands for sort, set, shine, standardize, and sustain. So we did a massive 5S project, but we involved the team, and that's why it took so long. And we created a process. When it was all said and done, the room turnover times went from like 42 minutes down to 22 minutes.
Wow.
Patient satisfaction went up, the volumes went up, the financial side was drastically impacted. um, the standardized processes, everybody that was involved, you talk to the anesthesiologist, you talk to the nurses, everybody that was involved, satisfaction went through the roof. And it was simply because we created a standardized, sustainable process that promoted flow. And if you think
Mm.
about it, an OR, the objective is to get people in and treat them and to fix their problems. And when your processes don't promote flow, that means this person who we really would like to get in this week may not get in for 3 weeks because your processes don't allow the volume of people that you could really accommodate. So it's not a financial side. It does impact the financial side, but it's a patient side, because if I
Mm.
can get that patient in this week instead of 3 weeks from now, that avoids 3 weeks of pain, suffering, problems that they're dealing with. So I'd say that was definitely one of them.
That's
That was definitely
fantastic.
one of them.
With that example, why do you think you were needed in the first place? Let's put it that way. Because you would think, if you're from an external point looking in, you would think that if these OR rooms are not stocked in the same manner, someone would think logically and think, actually, maybe we should put everything in the same place in this, have these mirrored OR rooms. Why do you
Hmm.
think that it has? And this is such a common thing as well. They wait until it almost gets so bad, that may be a little bit extreme, but they wait until it gets so bad to then be like, actually, you know what, we need external person, aka you, to come
Hmm.
in, and that question comes up again. Hey, you're going to fix this, because they know there's this problem. But why do you think organizations in as a whole often let it slide? I guess because I'm guessing on day one of that hospital opening, it wasn't a shambles.
No, to be honest, I think most people don't think at that level. You know, you talk about your nurses, you talk about your techs, your physicians, your directors, your managers in an OR. Their job is to take care of patients.
Mm-hmm.
They're thinking about patient care, and it's a different mindset. I'm a very organized person. Probably, if you looked at my office, you'd probably figure that out. You go out into my barn, you'd figure that out. A lot of people don't think of organization as promoting flow. They just think,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I'm organized. I've got stuff on my desk. You know, I've got um, things laid out right. But there's a lot more to flow than just making a desk look good or making a cabinet look good. It goes back to understanding what items you use together, which items you use the most frequently. Where should items be from an ergonomic standpoint? How many items should you have? What's the stocking levels? What's the order replenishment time? You know, all of those things go into how you should set up a room. And people don't think at that level because that's not their job, to be very
Mm-hmm.
honest. They don't train nurses, they don't train physicians, they don't train techs on 5S. They don't train them to promote flow in their operations. And so what happens over time, it's like this. I bet if I came into your house, you've got a drawer somewhere in your house that is a catch-all.
Oh yeah,
It just
we
has
call it the man drawer over in the
the
UK.
man drawer. Okay. And the same thing happens in our organizations. In an OR room, we have a space that doesn't have anything designated for
Sure.
it. So over time, what happens is it becomes the catch-all. Or we have a drawer that's supposed to have these 5 items, but you know what? I've got a culture that says, well, I'm trying to get this room turned around, and I've got these 3 items, and if I walk all the way back to the supply cabinet, it's going to take me 3 minutes, and I really need to get this, so I just throw them into this drawer. And what happens over time? It's a culture thing.
Mm-hmm.
It literally becomes a culture thing where it becomes accepted, and we just start creating this organization of chaos. Perfect example. I worked with an organization that bought a brand new copier for their roughly 30 people in this one department. The
They were
old
living the
copier,
life.
oh yeah, yeah,
That's like the pinnacle of the office.
yeah, yeah. The old copier was one of these giant dinosaurs, and it still
Mm-hmm.
worked, but it just wasn't optimal. But they decided not to move it because, it would cost a amount of money, and why move it? Because it's right there, no one cares, and people can still use it for every once in a while. But the problem is they didn't move it, and they put the new copier behind it, like 20 feet, 25, 30 feet behind it. So that means that every single person in that department had to walk 30 feet extra anytime they went to that copier. That's what I'm talking about. People don't think about the
Mm-hmm.
impact that has, because if you take 30 people times 30 steps, actually 60 steps back and forth, times 365 days a year, times 5 trips to the copier a day, oh my gosh, it turns into not just feet and minutes, it turns into hours and actual shifts that we've dedicated to walking to a copier. And
Yeah.
that's not what we're paying people for.
That is nuts when you break it down like that. Uh, what's the reason that you carry on doing what you do? Because obviously you are very passionate about it. You know, your background is fueled within it. But for you now, 5 years on, what is it that still gets your excitement going? You know, when you get that call of a potential new client, what is it that you go, yeah, this is going to be a good one?
You know, I don't actually get excited when I get a call because, and this is why, I'll go in and I'll sit down with the CEO or the senior leaders, and they'll make a comment like, we know what we're capable of. We really want to get there. One of my first comments is always, are you ready to be engaged in this process? And I mean daily. I mean engaged in this process. Are you ready to set the example? Are you ready to go past the brochures and the emails to get people excited? Are you
Yeah,
ready to actually live what we're talking about?
not
And
just
if
tick a
I see
box.
excitement in their yeah, if I see excitement in their face, that's when I get excited. If I see motivation, I think, and I can tell that they're like, oh yes, absolutely, I'm 100%. I get excited. But if I see that little twinge where they go, well, I thought this
Yeah.
was something I could just designate to a VP or a senior director, I don't get excited
Do
because
you
I
walk
know that
away or do you carry on?
I do. I walk away. I walk
How was
away.
that when, obviously, when your first walking away moment, was there anything that was trying to pull you back? Because when you run your own business, that's potential cash, that's potential revenue, all those positive things in a business. But I'm completely on board with you. It's the power of no, isn't it?
Yeah, and you have, yeah. There were no second thoughts. I had a um, general manager reach out to me, and we met for lunch, and I gave him one of my books that I released last year. And I started talking about exactly what we were talking about a second ago, and I could tell that he wanted it to happen, but he wasn't ready to commit himself. And so no, when I walk away from something like that, I have no heartburn. I feel bad for the organization, but to be very honest, I could come in there and spend 2 years, and from a financial standpoint, hey, it's great for J. Hodge and Associates. But I look at the big picture. I look at the fact that when I walk away, chances are if that leader is not engaged, not involved, as soon as I walk away, it's over. And they're going to find a
Exactly.
flavor of the month. They're going to find another thing. And all of a sudden, that what I would consider a failure now is attached to J. Hodge and Associates. I
Hmm.
want no part of that. I want them to succeed. Now, I've put this on my website. It's one of the first things I say is the success of J. Hodge and Associates has nothing to do with me. It has to do with whether my clients succeed. If they
Yeah,
succeed, that defines my success.
exactly. And that's where you set yourself apart from being a tick box solution to
Mhm.
that transformational change that any decent leadership person is striving for. Uh,
Absolutely.
for you, what are some of the themes and differences that you've seen crop up in the last couple of years in terms of that sort of top level leadership? How founders, CEOs, managers are looking at their businesses in perhaps a different light?
It's interesting. You mentioned that everybody talks about engagement. I think leaders are starting to understand that true, sustainable, long-term success is based upon engaging your team. And when I say
Hmm.
engaging your team, I'm talking about the floor level people all the way through the senior leaders. They have to be engaged on a daily basis. And I've seen it over and over again. I've seen it almost in every company I've worked with. They throw out brochures. They try and motivate people. They try and get people excited about what the company has a potential. Try to get them excited about the financial side. Hey, the bonus at the end of the year. But one of the things that I realized over the last several years is that there's a key piece missing. And I developed a system called the Dynamic Elemental Engagement System. And what it does, it's a four-piece system. And it contains the one thing that I think most organizations are missing when they try to create true engagement. Everybody wants to believe in themselves. They want to be successful. They want to believe like that they make a difference. That's
Hmm.
something that has to happen. They want to trust their leadership. Um, they they want to know that the leader that they're following is a good leader and actually isn't just there for the end of year bonus or to move up to the next company.
Yeah, definitely.
um, they want to understand the why. They want to know that from the person on the Toyota production line who understands that every time they torque down that wheel lug, they're impacting a family of 5 that's going to be driving in that vehicle later. They understand that. The one piece that I've found that is missing is confidence in processes. So we can motivate people, we can inspire people, we can make them believe in themselves. But the thing that's missing is people have to be confident in their processes. I could love my leader, I could be confident in myself or believe in myself, I could understand the why. But if I come in to work every single day and work on processes that are broken, that will not give me the quality results that I want, I'm not going to work there for very long.
Yeah.
And that's really the fourth element. And that's why I call it dynamic elemental engagement, is that's the fourth element. Because I don't
It's the
care how
silent killer
motivated.
of a business.
What's that?
It's almost like the silent killer of a business.
It absolutely is, because if you look at an organization, they could have the best people in the world, the best leadership, the most amazing passion for the why, what they do. But if the processes that they have in place within their organization don't take don't deliver the results that they want, they're not going to be that company for very
Hmm.
long. And focusing on the processes isn't fun, because it's called problem solving. It's called looking in the operational mirror. It's called designing effective processes. Whether you're using Lean and Six Sigma, whatever, I don't care what you call it. If your processes don't deliver the results, your people aren't going to be motivated. They're not going to believe in
100%.
themselves. The leadership's going to get disenchanted and go somewhere else, and they're going to lose the vision of why we're doing this to begin with. So,
Exactly. And what's the solution then? Is it for obviously companies employ people like you, but on a larger spectrum from sort of small, medium-sized business all the way up to sort of large corporate, listed, all that shiny objects. What is the solution for the leaders to learn that as well? Because I feel like over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of push in personal development within businesses, accountability, all those amazing things to make the employees the best employees that they have. But how do we then also start educating them on that processing level?
um, I think you have to take all four of those ideas that I just talked about in play. Leadership, accountability, it all starts with leadership.
Mm-hmm.
We could talk about things all day long, but to be very honest and 100% transparent, it all starts with leadership. Leadership sets the expectations, but then live, they have to walk the walk, not
Yeah.
just talk the talk. It goes back to accountability, setting expectations, accountability, communications, and then holding people accountable to the expectations. It's a vicious circle. We set expectations. We have an accountability system that drives our performance. Um, I utilize what's called a lean management system. I implement it at different companies, and it's a visual system, and it drives that whole process. So if a department is struggling in this one specific area, how are we validating or how are we measuring our
Mm-hmm.
performance? Well, organizations can measure things all day long. Man, I've gone into companies and they've got walls full of whiteboards and charts and graphs that literally look like a rainbow threw up on their wall. It's beautiful. It's just
But
breathtaking.
that's the
And,
trouble.
yeah, that's the problem. I say, how long have you been measuring that? Well, we've been measuring it for 2 years. Show me your performance 2 years ago. And I look at it, and it's really no different.
Mm,
I'm like, okay, so this has been your performance for 2 years. Show me the actions you're taking, the problem solving, whether you're using Lean Six Sigma, whatever. Show me what you're doing to actually impact that, because measuring something fixes nothing. You could pull
exactly.
up, 500 pages of reports, sit them on the middle of a desk. I could come back a week later and ask you the question, how many problems have those reports solved? The answer is going to be zero.
Mm-hmm.
Data and reports have never solved a problem. It's the actions we take based upon our understanding, analysis, and evaluation of the data that actually gets us from point A to point B. But that's the biggest problem: is we are action averse. We like to
People
talk.
don't know what to do with that data either, do they?
Yeah,
They
that
they
that's
have they. It looks great. It sounds great in a meeting. If someone like you is going to walk in a business and they've got data to present, it's going to sound great, but it's not really meaningful of anything unless you're sort of on that front line, so to speak, on that change, in my
hmm
opinion.
you're right. And when we take that data, a lot of times the data stays at the director, manager,
Hmm.
senior level. How many times have you probably seen this, and I've seen this, where I walk down onto the floor, the person who's doing the floor level process, and said, "What do you think about this? How long have you been fighting this? Do you have any thoughts?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, we got all sorts of ideas, but no
Yeah.
one's listening." And I was in an organization several years ago. They were struggling with this exact thing, and I went down and I talked with the people on the floor, and they're like, "Well, we've had ideas, and we told them our ideas, but nothing ever happened, so we just stopped raising our hands
Exactly. Yeah.
because nothing was happening." So yeah.
Talking to deaf ears, so to speak. And
hmm
it's
and then that goes back to the leadership. When the leadership
oh, always.
realizes that the knowledge and the experts live on the floor.
Mm,
The experts don't live in the director's position or the senior level position. The experts live on the floor, because those are the ones touching and impacting your patients and customers every single day. The people on the floor are literally your hands, your feet, your eyes, your nose that meet the customer. And
yeah.
so if
I
we're
think
not
there's a bit
involving
of
them,
a trust and ego comes into play with a lot of
oh yeah.
leaders,
hmm
especially when you've got that sort of type of business where you have got sort of on the ground people and there's that almost disconnect. There's a lot of ego comes into it, a lot of trust, and once you break down that barrier, and unfortunately, it's almost like you have to prove to those leaders that actually these people that you haven't been listening to are the ones who need to be listening to, and then
Hmm.
everything changes.
Right.
This is a really bad analogy, but it's one of the reasons that, Undercover Boss, I think, is a fantastic show, because it literally throws that leader into the stores, into the
Hmm.
places, and they get that very unique position of change. I
Yeah.
would question whether it would be the same if the cameras weren't there, but we can't judge on that factor.
Right.
And
Right.
some big change has happened. A lot of big change hasn't happened
Yep.
as well, as we all know.
Exactly right.
For you, Jay, what's next? How do you keep your finger on the pulse in terms of keeping up to date with latest trends and what's going on in sort of personal development leadership world? And then how do you plan to implement new change into the business for you so that you can then inject that into your clients' businesses?
I don't really see, I do some speaking, and I think I'm involved in the California Healthcare Executives meeting in November as a moderator for like a panel. And so I stay involved through that, but a lot of my engagement is through social media, the LinkedIn, the Twitter, the Facebook. I am not a social media guru. I am not. So I have someone that does that for me.
You mean you
Um,
haven't got a video with her in front of a Lamborghini?
no, I don't.
Not yet.
No,
Not yet.
no, no. But if you want to know how to lose 12 pounds in 10 weeks, visit my website, right? No, not at all. Um, you know, I, I think for me, um, the future is in God's hand. I mean, God has blessed me with the most amazing family, um, a network of friends and leaders that is just amazing. I've got three people that I consider mentors that are just, I call them, they're there.
Hmm.
And that's the really cool thing. You get to a certain age and you get to a certain point in your life where you realize that you're actually a mentor for other people as well. And so I get calls and I get texts and people saying, "Hey, I need your opinion on this." And all of a sudden the light bulb comes on and you realize that you've transitioned into a mentor role. And it's an eye-opening experience because you realize how much responsibility there is for that. When people call and say, "I've got these two options. I'm struggling with them. What do you think?" And you realize you have a huge impact. And for me, in my business, with my company and the network of people in my business, um, for me, I think doing what I do for as long as I want to do it is really my goal.
Yeah.
And whether I'm working with an organization that has 100,000 employees or whether I'm working with an organization that has 1,000, I don't really care because I know that my desire is to make a difference, to help them to become what they have the ability to become, or what I like to refer to it as, I'm help you see the horizon that's past the horizon.
Hmm.
So that's
That's
really what I'm doing.
I love that, and I think that just proves how committed to helping people and the sort of values that you live your life by, and obviously your business is going to be living by those values as well. So, hats off to you there, Jay. Uh,
Thank you, Stephen.
One of my final questions then is, how can people find out more about you? How can people get in touch? And I mean, you're a social media guru, so you should be all over this bit.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Well, the easiest way to get a hold of me is probably on my company website, www.theletterjhodgeassoc.com. They can go on there. They can, if they're interested in my book, they can go on Audible. They can get it on Amazon, Kindle, whatever you want. That's fine. Um, or they can call me. I don't mind throwing it out. My phone number is 812-789-6404. Obviously, if I don't answer, I'll call you back. But um,
If he doesn't answer, you just didn't like the number.
that's right. And I've got, LinkedIn for my company. I've got LinkedIn for myself
Fantastic.
personally. So I'm out there. I'm
Perfect.
so
Jay,
yeah.
thank you so much for coming on Founders 365. Thanks for sharing your stories. And I'm so glad we connected. And I look forward to just seeing everything evolve and move forward.
Thank you, Stephen. I appreciate it. Thank you for what you do. It's amazing.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for listening and watching. This has been Founders 365.